with Dr. David Vollmer. Let me just kind of share with you all a little bit about my For Life journey here. I joined For Life on October 20, 1998. And I did it after almost 18 years in this industry of network marketing. I started when I was in my early 20s. I was 21, and I got excited about the potential of this kind of business. But it took me almost 18 years to find a company like For Life. So what makes For Life different? We're going to learn this today as we listen to Dr. Vollmer. I don't consider For Life a network marketing company. Sure, that's the business model that they chose, and okay, I guess they are a network marketing company, but I really don't look at it that way necessarily, and here's why. For Life is a research company. They spend a lot of money, a lot of time, and they research. And whatever concept they may come up with, they'll investigate it. And to take a concept from an idea to go through all of the various protocols they have to go through of their own research, and then validation, substantiation, and to get it to a point where they can take it to market where we get it. And then our job, of course, is to go out and talk about it. And that's why it's network marketing. But For Life is a research company. Everything they do is based on science. And that is why when you look at For Life, the four pillars that we always talk about, you can go to forlife.com and just click on About For Life. You will see they're in a specific order: science, success, service, and satisfaction. Science is first for a reason. We don't have anything if we don't have good, sound science. So for us to go out and talk about a product, share a product, it has to be backed by science. And that's the way For Life operates. They don't just go say, hey, let's go take something willy-nilly and give it to us and let's go sell it. It goes through a lot. And Dr. Vollmer, I'm sure he'll share some of that today. So I love For Life research, and that's why I'm in my 28th year now, because they continuously come out with products based on science, as we're going to learn today. And we can take these new products and new technologies, if you will, and share it with people. And it's exciting to do that. There's been a big buzz about peptides. And I learned about peptides, many, many years ago. You've got your natural peptides and your synthetic peptides. And just all of a sudden, there's just this tremendous talk about peptides. They're very beneficial. And our transfer factor, as Dr. Vollmer will talk about today, it is a peptide. And so he's going to get into that today. And that's what today's topic is really about. It's about For Life technology when it comes to peptides. And so we're excited to have our special guest, Dr. David Vollmer. Whenever I travel, by the way, we were just in Thailand earlier this year. I try to sit next to Dr. Vollmer all the time because I like to pick his brain. And I don't know if he gets tired of me doing that, but just about everywhere we go on a trip or something, I'll sit next to him at dinner or on the boat. And so it's always fun because it's always fun to learn from him, which we will do today. So with that, I want to pass the microphone over to Julie. I call her Doctor. She knows a lot about peptides as well. She's done a lot of research too. But Jillian Murray is going to be talking to, interviewing, and having a discussion with Dr. David Vollmer. So with that, I want to welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today, our Mentor Monday today here on Monday, April 27th. We appreciate your time. I'm going to pass it now over to Jillian Murray. Jillian, the microphone is yours, and Dr. David Vollmer.
They can't see you.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I want to say welcome, and I'm really, really, really excited about today's call because I know this is something I've been talking about for a little while, and we did have a call last week trying to educate people on what peptides are, because there is a lot of confusion out there right now, and it's all over everywhere online lately. I don't know if you've been on YouTube, but if you follow Diary of a CAO, this podcast, the mainstream news, you probably have friends and people out there that are taking peptides. But there's confusion, and overnight, like Dave was saying, peptides have become one of the most talked about topics in health, linked to everything from weight loss, cognitive performance, anti-aging, muscle repair, and skincare health. There's even increasing conversation at the regulatory level. It just came out recently with discussions about a broader access and use of certain peptide therapies in the US. And that's really a hot topic right now. But what this rise in popularity happens, when this happens, there's also a lot of confusion. I just recently had a conversation with a naturopath who says, oh, no, I can't be promoting transfer factor because it's a synthetic lab-driven peptide. And so that to me was like a red flag, because not all peptides are the same. Not all sources are the same, and not all approaches carry the same level of safety, intention, or long-term impact on the body. This is one of the reasons why I went to this avenue when I was looking at a solution when it comes to health. And I'm very, very proud to align myself with this company because of the ethics, because of the science, because of the research and tenure when it comes to what they are presenting. So today's conversation is about slowing the conversation down and bringing clarity. So we're going to explore what peptides are or actually are in simple biological terms, and the difference between naturally occurring immune peptides and synthetic lab-created peptides. That's the difference right there. Why this distinction matters for safety and long-term health, and what you need to understand before introducing anything new into your body. I'm truly, truly grateful that we get to have this conversation with someone who has spent decades at the forefront of this science. So Dr. Dave Vollmer, you and I have not officially met. However, I am a fan from a distance, and I'm sorry I didn't get to meet you at the conference. But Dr. Vollmer is the Chief Scientific Officer at For Life and has been instrumental in the research development and global education around transfer factor, one of the earliest and most established ways of working with naturally derived immune signaling molecules. So rather than just following trends, today we get to hear directly from someone who understands the biology behind the buzz. So Dr. Vollmer, thank you so much for being here with us today. And I'd love to pass it over to you to help ground us in this important conversation.
Dr. Vollmer, if you don't mind, share with everybody as well your history, kind of, because you come from a different point of view, if you will, having been in the pharmaceutical industry for so many years. So if you don't mind, just kind of share with everyone kind of your background.
Sure. Yeah. So as Dave mentioned, after I got my PhD, I spent about 20 years in the pharmaceutical industry in many different capacities. So I worked in quality, in GMPs, in pharmaceuticals is very, very high. The supplements are also high. I worked in a number of startup biodiscovery types of companies. So looking at things like cancer, inflammation, and these were, when you work in startups, you basically wear so many different hats. So I got a really, really good overview of how things are developed, how things are researched. And so when I came to For Life, what I really liked about For Life and what really drew me to For Life was this idea that they spend a lot of time and money in research and in quality. And really to create innovative products, you really need to do that. There's a lot of companies out there that are very much a me too sort of company. They see a product that somebody's doing that's making a lot of money, and so they create products like that. For Life is not that type of company. Most of the products that we develop are products built on research. Actually, in the chat, I dropped off, David, I thought you said a wonderful thing about For Life, in that the products are really built on research. And we actually created a video, and we showed it at convention for those of you who came to the Science Symposium at convention, that really captures the essence of that. So I'd encourage you to go onto YouTube or click on the link that I put in the chat, where it really kind of describes how we develop products. And that's what really drew me to For Life, because my whole career had been research. And it was something that resonated with me when I came and visited now almost 15 years ago at For Life. And what's interesting about the initial work here at For Life was it was around peptides. At the time I came, which this would have, For Life would have been in existence for about 10 or 15 years, we always talked about transfer factor and how it worked as an ingredient, but we really didn't spend a lot of time talking about transfer factor as a peptide. And it wasn't until we started to do these different types of tests called proteomics, which is the study of proteins and peptides, where we really started to understand at least a little bit more, not everything, but a little bit more on how transfer factor works, what were their amino acid compositions, what was the size of these peptides, and in some aspects, what are some of the sequences of these peptides. But you really have to come at it from the standpoint of transfer factors of peptide. And if we want to understand what it is, we have to use tools that help us interrogate peptides. And so that's really what we've been doing for the last 15 plus years. And we've made a lot of strides. We still don't know everything. There's so much more to know, but we've learned so much through that research. And that research has really driven a lot of the products that we have developed over the years. Most recently, Age Pro. We learned a lot about how these transfer factor peptides help support longevity. Prebiotics. We did a lot of research on transfer factor to help us understand how these peptides can function as a prebiotic. And so it's really good now. I think that peptides are really getting a lot of attention lately, even though we've been doing them for many, many years. Colostrum also is getting a lot of attention lately, and we've been, of course, that was what the company was founded on, was colostrum, ultrafiltered colostrum. And so when we talk about the transfer factors that we've developed, it's really utilizing proprietary and patented techniques to extract out of colostrum, which you can imagine colostrum and egg, it's this big soup of all kinds of different nutrients, and the processes that we have are really designed to pull out and concentrate these bioactive peptides, and in some cases proteins as well, but primarily peptides. And so I'm glad that we're having this conversation. This is really the first conversation I've had where we were talking solely about peptides, and so I think it's a really timely and good topic to discuss. And so with that, let me see if I can go ahead and share my screen. I did put some slides together over the weekend, and so let me see if I can share those, and we can kind of talk through those. And then if we have any questions, Jillian, we can have further discussions. Okay, let me know if you can see my slides.
Yes.
Good.
Good. Okay. And so essentially what I did was Dave and Jillian had put some questions together, some topics of interest. And so I put some slides together to kind of go through these one by one. I don't know if it's completely comprehensive on what exactly they wanted, but let's just go through those and see if we can understand peptides a little bit more. So let's just start off with the basics, like what is a peptide? And of course, you may have heard that amino acids are the building blocks of life. And peptides simply are a small chain of these amino acids. And as that chain gets longer and longer, that chain turns into proteins. So when you think about it in the simplest form, you have amino acids, which are the small little building blocks. And those building blocks, when you put them together in a chain, those are called a peptide. And as they get larger and larger, that becomes a protein. And where that size change is between a peptide and a protein really just kind of depends on how you're looking at it, what context you're looking at it. But generally speaking, the ultrafiltration that we do on colostrum and the other forms of transfer factor, they really are pulling out these small peptides out of these complex soups. And ultimately, what they are is messengers. They are messengers for our body, for our cells. They help catalyze many of the millions and millions of cellular reactions that happen in our body every second. And so they're a very vital piece of life. We can't live without them. If we didn't have peptides and proteins, we literally, we wouldn't be alive. So super, super important. Now, if we focus in and we talk about immune peptides or transfer factor peptides, these are, in our case, these are naturally occurring. The peptides that we have in transfer factor from colostrum, bovine colostrum, from chicken egg yolk, and now brassica seeds, right? Everybody who came to convention or has been following For Life for the last few years have realized that we have now found these peptides, these immune peptides in plants, and specifically in brassica seeds. And of course, if you've been with For Life for any amount of time, you know that these are transfer factor peptides that help us recognize, respond to, and remember individual health threats. And through that process, we are essentially helping our immune system communicate to be able to do those things in the presence of health threats. And that's really, in a nutshell, what transfer factor is these small immune peptides that help us strengthen our immune system. Now, on the other side of it, and where a lot of attention has happened, is peptides that are made in the lab, or sometimes people call them synthetic peptides. And those are really, as Jillian had mentioned earlier, these are really designed to target specific functions. There's peptides that are synthesized for skin, for recovery, and you've maybe seen some of them. They're not legal in the regulatory structure, although people still are able to get them. Most of them are coming from China. They are not well characterized. They're not well tested. And so that's something that I think people should be aware of, is that if you're thinking about it or you're taking these peptides, unless they are through a pharmaceutical company, they're not being tested. And so you have to take that with some caution in terms of looking at peptides and buying them on the internet. Of course, if you've been with For Life for a long time, you know that we spend a lot of time. This is what I came into For Life, was the quality aspect of it. I came in and started working in the quality department and really strengthened a lot of the quality processes that we had in place, so that we were operating almost like a pharmaceutical company with the same level of standards, well above what our industry, what the dietary supplement industry is, but and rivaling that of pharmaceutical companies. And so all the testing that we do on transfer factor is pretty stringent, it's pretty rigorous, and we don't have those concerns that you might have when you're potentially ordering synthetic peptides over the internet. So summary is that immune peptides help us support communication of our immune system, whereas synthetic peptides target really specific outcomes. Okay, so why is For Life a pioneer? Well, For Life has been studying these immune peptides, these things we call transfer factors, for now almost 28 years. Well before I got here, I've been here for about 15 years. That's really when we ramped up the studying of these peptides using proteomics and other techniques that allow us to really understand transfer factors at a molecular level. Transfer factors are naturally derived. So again, they come from colostrum, chicken egg yolk, as well as brassica seed. And it really, again, is a way for our immune system to communicate, pass along information from one to the other. Overall, strengthen our immune system so that we can be ready for whatever life throws at us. Of course, long before peptides were a thing, we really had been focusing on this, like I said, for 28 years, helping the immune system communicate and then provide balance. And that's something I think also differentiates these peptides from other peptides and other immune type products, is that transfer factor is designed to create balance. And so it has this ability to communicate with your immune system when it's overactive. And so some people call that inflammation, or if it's underperforming, when your immune system is a little bit down, perhaps after you've exercised, or perhaps you're having some sort of event where your immune system is low. And transfer factor is there to provide balance. And the beautiful thing about transfer factor is it allows communication with your immune system to be able to provide that balance, to know, is it overactive or is it underperforming? And whatever the situation is, it can act accordingly through this communication with your immune system. So as many of you know who came to convention, we actually just announced and launched what we call phytofactor. This is a plant-based transfer factor. It's this transfer factor peptides found in plants. And we've leveraged that discovery into a number of different products. The hero product of the convention, we call Transfer Factor Max, and that is a combination of plant-based transfer factor as well as animal-based transfer factor. So it's the only product in the world that has both forms of peptides, in terms of that coming from animal kingdom and that coming from the plant kingdom. And so you can imagine we're still doing a lot of studies. We've done a number of studies already, but we're doing more studies to see what sort of synergies we can get with these different sources of peptides. Of course, if you came to convention, you probably learned that Transfer Factor Max has 3 clinical studies. One includes the 2-hour activation study that we did a number of years ago. And we can show that because we have added 600 milligrams, or a daily dose, of transfer factor to Transfer Factor Max. But we've also added 300 milligrams of phytofactor. So now we have this combination of transfer factor from plants and animals. And we've leveraged that into research that helps support the natural production of stem cells. So stem cells is also a big thing that's going on right now. And in our study that we did with Transfer Factor Max, what we showed was that after only 1 dose of Transfer Factor Max, within a few hours, we saw the natural production of millions and millions of stem cells. So we're not talking about stem cells that you inject. These are literally stem cells that you take Transfer Factor Max, and it allows your body to naturally produce these stem cells, and that happens on the order of a few hours, and we're talking about millions of these different stem cells. We also, just a little bit about phytofactor. Phytofactor, that was now in the 7th year of discovering these peptides, and it really came about, interestingly, from a question that we had from an affiliate who said, is there a vegan form of transfer factor? And we had never really thought about a vegan form of transfer factor. What we had always considered was transfer factor came from mammals, comes from animals. Of course, it was discovered in 1949 in humans, and then later David Lisenby licensed a patent that allowed us to extract it out of colostrum. Later, he discovered it in egg, and now, fast forward about 20 years later, we have now discovered it in plants. Interestingly, we didn't know this, but it comes out of seeds, out of brassica seeds, which, when you think about how animals pass on their immune wisdom to their offspring, it makes sense that in plants we would find that in the brassica seed. And so we've leveraged that technology into a number of different products that we launched at convention, Transfer Factor Max, but also Immune Tea. And Immune Tea is a really good product, not only because it tastes really, really good, but it also has phytofactor in there. So it has that, a number of time-tested immune ingredients. And for those of you who were lucky enough to get it, it sold out at convention. If you were lucky enough to get it, I hope that you had a good experience with it. It's something that I take when I start to feel a little bit down in terms of my throat. If I'm talking too much at convention, I had to take a few cups of it because I was talking a lot and my throat was really sore. And so it's a great product for that. Has a wonderful smell, wonderful taste. It's very shareable. And so for those of you who are business builders, it's a great product where you can go out and have a social event and share this wonderful tea, and then start talking about transfer factor and plant-based peptides and ultimately a for life business. And so again, together these peptides allow us to help support our body and how it communicates, particularly within the immune system. Okay, so going back to natural versus synthetic, so let's just compare and contrast. So natural peptides, these come from foods, they come from biological sources. In our case, in terms of immune peptides, they come from colostrum, egg yolk, and seeds. They are there to support the balance of our body. It's the health and wellness of our body. And they're there to work with our body's natural processes. And so in the case, again, of transfer factor max, in that situation, in that context, it's helping our body naturally produce millions and millions of stem cells. And what's, I think, really important here is safety. So anytime we talk about natural products, generally, not always, but generally, these are very safe, and they have a long history of safe use in our bodies. And we can contrast that to synthetic or injectable peptides. Not to say that these aren't safe, but they are created in a lab. Generally speaking, they will target a single outcome. So when you think about some of the peptides that are injected, like GLP-1s, Ozempics, those are specifically for weight loss rather than this supporting the whole body balance. Of course, there's some positives. They can be very fast acting. And so a lot of people who are taking Ozempics start to see results very, very quickly. But the key here is within the context of the channel that we live in, we don't require medical supervision when we sell natural peptides, particularly the immune peptides, whereas these synthetic or these injectable peptides, they oftentimes require medical supervision. You need a prescription, and some of them can be very, very expensive. So again, the main key here is that with natural peptides, with immune peptides, you're really supporting the body's natural processes, whereas with synthetics, they're very, very specific, very selective in particular of what they're designed to do. Okay, so now how can you as affiliates communicate these in simple and clear ways? And I hope that this background, this education that I've given you is simple enough that it makes a lot of sense, because it's one thing for me to tell you all of this, but the reality is you have to be able to go out and talk about it as well. And the key to me is just really keeping it simple. In fact, I think this is one of Dave's big things, is keeping things simple. And so if we keep things simple in terms of peptides, they really are messengers in our body. They're there to help promote this many millions of cellular reactions that happen in our body. And in the case of transfer factor peptides, we're really supporting immune communication. And one thing I think we all need to be cognizant of is not to overpromise in these results and say, that you're going to lose a ton of weight, or, whatever people are looking for. And then also not use a lot of medical language. And I think I've tried to do that here so that we can keep that message very simple. And so one phrase that you might think about using is that these products are really designed, these immune peptides, these things we call transfer factor, are designed to help your body communicate, help your immune system communicate better, so that when it encounters health threats, which it does every day, it has essentially a proactive approach to being able to help support your immune system in a natural, very natural way. I did want to give a little bit of time and talk about how you can position these as a wellness strategy. And when we talk about wellness strategy, a foundational wellness strategy here at For Life, what we're really talking about is something called the For Life Way. And the For Life Way, if you remember years and years ago, we used to call it the 4 R's. And we have sort of simplified that message and really called it the For Life Way. And you can think about this as sort of a pyramid where we have lifestyle. And so foundational wellness in terms of lifestyle means exercise, sleep, stress management. There's also the nutritional component. And so that's eating proper foods, so fruits, vegetables, good protein, as well as proper hydration. Hydration has become a really hot topic over the last couple of years. There's a number of companies that are developing hydration products. We are also one of those working on hydration products. Haven't launched it yet, but are working on it, where you can see a lot of good benefits of making sure that you're hydrated as well as eating good food. And then the communication part of it, now we're talking about these immune peptides, helping our body communicate so that it can recognize, respond, and remember health threats. And then ultimately creating this strong immune system, this foundation for a stronger you. And so the message here is daily support for today and for a stronger tomorrow. Okay, so the future, what's the future of peptide science at For Life? It's moving forward in what I would consider as a more personalized, a more targeted way. We can see that in a lot of the products that we've developed, particularly the targeted products. And so the last targeted product that we developed was Age Pro, and that was a targeted product towards longevity. So for those folks who are interested in longevity, and that's another hot topic, then we have leveraged the science, the peptide science of transfer factor into this product to help support healthy aging as well as longevity. Of course, there's always been a growing interest in natural and a foundational approach to help our body better communicate with itself, whether it's the immune system or any other aspect, any other body system. And that is oftentimes best done through peptides. And so this is an area that we're going to look at, continue to look at in terms of the immune system, but also look at it in terms of other peptides, because now that there's a lot of interest in peptides, we're starting to see a lot of the ingredient manufacturers really lean into the peptide science for specific outcomes. And so we're keeping abreast of all that research, reading the papers that are coming out. And so a lot of the products that we're working on right now that have not yet been launched, but will be launched in the future, are really designed around this science as well. And ultimately, it leaves us because we're a research company, because peptides is an emerging area, we are really positioned well because we've been doing this for now 25 plus years. And that puts us in a good spot from a research standpoint in terms of the products that we develop, but also it puts us in a good spot for you because we are working on products that are very cutting edge and products that will help us well into the future. And let's see, I think that might be it. Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway,
Dr.
I don't know if I
Vollmer?
answered. I'm going to stop sharing here. Pop back
I'd
on.
like you to actually, if you don't mind, and I apologize for interrupting here.
Yeah.
Because we're familiar, those of us that have been around For Life for a while, familiar with a little bit of the evolution of transfer factor. If you don't mind explaining that, because it all began with ultra factor, which was the original transfer factor, which after that led to ovo factor and then nano factor and now phytofactor. So if you don't mind, share with everyone, because obviously the company didn't just say, oh, let's just, develop another transfer factor. There's a lot of research that went into it. And so there's benefits of each one of those: ultra factor, then ovo factor, nano factor, phytofactor. So if you don't mind, share with everyone a little bit just the evolution and the benefit. Like, I was fascinated by the phytofactor and its impact on neutrophils. And we have a lot of people that come from the health and wellness community that are with us here today. So I think it's important for them to understand the benefits of each of these, because there's a purpose, like nanofactor being a regulator, but I'll let you do the explanation, but just the evolution, a little bit of transfer factor technology.
Yeah. Thanks, David. It's a great story because it really started with what we call ultra factor. And I don't know how familiar people are with these different names. we have names for the different sources of transfer factor. And so ultra factor is really taking bovine colostrum and filtering it in a way that extracts out, pulls out these small peptides that have this immune benefit. And that was a technology that was developed in the 80s. And 80s was a really important time because most of the work on transfer factor up to that point had been done in blood. And if you know anything about the 80s, that's when AIDS and Hep C became real big issues. And so the research for a blood-based transfer factor really dried up because nobody wanted to work with blood because there was pathogens associated with AIDS and Hep C. And it was a really good time to start looking for other sources of transfer factor. And there was a group that had found transfer factors in colostrum, these peptides in colostrum. And David Lisenby actually founded For Life on that technology, the ability to pull out these peptides out of colostrum and put them into a capsule and give someone an immune benefit. So that was really the origin story for Life, as well as for ultrafactor, these small peptides out of colostrum. Subsequent to that, a few years later, I think it was around 2003, we started to look for other sources of transfer factor. It made sense to stick with the animal kingdom. And when you think about transfer factor, it is made by the immune system for the immune system. And so in the case of ultrafactor, it was from the cow to the calf. But there's obviously other there can be other sources of transfer factor. In this case, it was looked at in eggs. And so eggs are the way for chickens to pass on their immune wisdom to the chicks. And it's done through the egg yolk. And so transfer factors were discovered in egg. And so we've developed processes to concentrate these transfer factor peptides in egg. And then a few years later, another technology came about besides ultrafiltration. There was also nanofiltration. And so this is a slightly different technology where you're actually pulling out even smaller peptides, more peptides that are more on the, as Dave mentioned, the regulatory front. And when you put all of these three things together, the ultrafactor, the ovofactor, and the nanofactor, that created what we called trifactor. So that was when we developed transfer factor trifactor formula. And that really, for many, many years, served as the basis for transfer factor in all the products. So if you look at all of our targeted products, they have the trifactor formula. If you look at Transfer Factor Plus and now Max, they also have the trifactor formula. And so that was really what we knew, what we studied, what we spent years and years on. We actually did a study a couple of years ago that showed a 2-hour activation, a clinical study to show 2-hour activation of our immune system. That was done on trifactor. But all the while, when we were doing these types of studies over the last 6-7 years, we were actually looking also at other sources of transfer factor.
And Dr. Vollmer, not to interrupt you here, but
yeah.
the messaging for us out in the field was about the 3 R's. Transfer factor with the ultrafactor, ovofactor, nanofactor, those 3 R's, educating everybody on transfer factor's ability to recognize health threats, respond, activating your immune system within 2 hours, clinically proven, all right, responding to health threats. And then thirdly, there's a remember component, if you will, memory component as well. So we had those 3 R's: recognize, respond to, and remember threats. And that was basically our focus in the field, how we talked about it. So go ahead.
And so all of that was built around the trifactor formula, which was developed and put together many, many years ago. And so it was the foundation, it was the basis for everything that we did in terms of product development, in terms of research. But it wasn't until about 6 or 7 years ago where we started to evaluate, well, are there other forms of transfer? Well, actually, let me step back. This was probably this is basically when I moved into R&D. I had a directive from the then CEO, Steve Tu. We want to know if there's other transfer factors. We want an advancement on transfer factor. And so we spent a number of years trying to find other sources of transfer factor without much success. We have some, you guys see all of our successes, but what happens in research is you have a lot of failures. And so you don't see the failures, but we've had many, many failures behind the scenes, which is that's just part of doing research, right? You can't hit on everything. You're going to have failures. And so we had a lot of failures trying to find the next generation of transfer factor. And it wasn't until we got this question from an affiliate like you, is there a vegan form of transfer factor? And that really set off this 6-7 year journey of evaluating, trying to find a plant-based version of transfer factor. And fortunately, part of the challenge was finding somebody who could actually do that. So when I would talk to vendors who might have these capabilities, they really didn't capture or see the vision of what it took to find a plant-based transfer factor. And it wasn't until we came across Dr. Chi, who actually just recently won the Lawrence Prize, if you were at convention. He was instrumental in us finding a plant-based transfer factor because his company, his lab, had tens of thousands of different plants and plant parts from all around the world. And we were able to interrogate all of those to look for not metabolites, which is what most people look for in botanicals. They look at metabolites. This was to actually look for peptides. This was a specific discovery effort campaign to find peptides in plants. And we did find them. We found them in the brassica seeds. And it turns out they have these wonderful benefits, similar but not identical to the transfer factor that we know, the trifactors from cows and chickens. And we were able to leverage that research into this product that we call phytofactor. And so phytofactor is really the next generation of transfer factor research, and building upon what we already knew with the transfer factor, with the ultrafactor, with the ovofactor, and with the nanofactor.
And what separates phytofactor, Dr. Vollmer? What sets it apart from the mammalian transfer factors?
Yeah, it's a great question. We have been doing quite a bit of work on that. Some of that is still ongoing, but the simple way to think about it is when you're talking about animals and you're talking about threats, they have two ways to fight threats. They can fight them head on, or they can run away. Plants, on the other hand, they can't run away. They are rooted in the ground. And so what happens is their immune system, and plants do have an immune system. That was one of the first things I looked at when this question came up about a vegan transfer factors. I didn't even know if plants had an immune system, but of course they do. All living organisms have an immune system, but plants can't run away. They have to stand there and fight. And so what that means from an evolutionary standpoint is that most of the energy from a plant in terms of their immune system is on the innate side of things. So the innate side is really stand and fight, take health threats head on very, very quickly. And whereas humans, they have an innate, or animals also have an innate and adaptive immune system. So the adaptive is sort of the T cells and B cells. Those are the remember the threat type of thing, whereas plants are really primarily an innate immune system. So what does that mean? It means that they fight threats head on, that it's very potent, and it's very fast. And so when we think about plant-based transfer factor from animal-based transfer factor, they're similar in the terms of they help the organism survive and thrive, but they're different in how they approach it, whereas plants are really attacking their threats within minutes, literally within minutes, because they don't have the ability to run away. So that's one of the big differences when we think about plants and animal transfer factors. And we're still doing a lot of research to really hone in on these differences, but we see we are able to leverage in the form of say like transfer factor max, we're able to leverage the immune wisdom of animals as well as the immune wisdoms of plants.
I do have is Jillian here? I just wanted to say thank you very much for today, David. I just wanted, today we're talking like you're targeting immune system health, but I just to be clear for, in simple language, like yes, transfer factor as a molecule is the the basis around a lot of our targeted products that we have. But there are other peptides, like and I just think you need to get the language in, like collagen and glutamine prime and ProTF and other products like you mentioned, H Pro.
Yep.
I just want people to understand that we're not just transfer factor when it comes to, for those that are looking and seeking the word peptide. We are a natural solution. So I just want to maybe you expand on that, so people that may be confused, that we don't just offer that.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, that's really what distinguishes us is the transfer factor peptides, but that's not all we do. We have peptides in other products. So you mentioned that, Jillian, our transfer factor collagen. So when we think about the collagen in those products, they are collagen peptides. And why are they collagen peptides and not collagen proteins? Because peptides actually can be utilized better by our body than they can in terms of proteins. So there's a lot of collagen products out there that are probably more on the protein side of things. We are really on the peptide side of things because it's easier for our body to digest and to utilize and to get those benefits towards the skin. We also have ProTF that is also peptides as well. So that's a hydrolyzed protein. And so we're breaking down these whey proteins. Now, whey proteins are more on, instead of the skin side of it with collagen peptides, whey proteins are more on the muscle side of it. So think about muscle protein synthesis. And so the whey protein, the whey peptides and ProTF are designed to help support muscle health. And these are also hydrolyzed so that our body can better utilize it. Oftentimes it's hard as you get older for your body to digest these proteins. And so there's a lot of people will get upset stomachs when they have large proteins that they have to digest. And so we actually utilize hydrolyzed whey as well as hydrolyzed egg white peptides.
So I love that you're talking about collagen is a huge factor. It's something that I've been using for years. But I love what we offer, which is about helping build the structure, right? And to make it easier. Thanks for making clarity on that. Because that's the other thing is glutamine. Is something new to me about how repairing your system, right? That's something that I'm getting used to understanding myself. And I see transfer factor as that communication device, right? It's like helping the immune signaling. So these are topics that I think a lot of people in the field are still confused about. So I just want to remind everybody that we do have a private community out there, the Good Health Stories and Solutions. We put the link in the chat where we do have these conversations. We want to help, like David, I really appreciate you being here today. And I'm hoping that you can come to these Medical Mentor Mondays, or we have more people from For Life as practitioners coming in to give us the insights group from a medical perspective on what we need to understand as affiliates, that don't have your background. I'm seeing a lot of comments inside the chat thanking you for putting some clarity to the confusion. And this is what we need. And I thank you, Dave, for giving us a platform with Upline Pro where we can come together as one, back to the convention, as one, regardless of language or, affiliation or team. We're one team. But sometimes we get confused and misdirected out there, right? So we want to make sure that we are saying the same language and saying the same terminology and being able to show what we know. If you know, you know, but not everybody knows. And I don't want to be able to give you a voice to those like myself so we can cut through the noise. So I really appreciate you today. And I know, Dave, I'll let you wrap it up for the call. But again, reminding everybody, tomorrow we are going to do another call for peptides too, continuing this conversation, David, because I don't think, like you said, we talked a lot about transfer factor, but I think people need to know about the collagen.
Yeah. Hey,
right?
Jillian, can I just take a second? I saw a question in the chat by Marissa, and she's asking about peptides and molecules. So it's a great question because we have some people who talk about transfer factor as molecules, and molecules are really a very, very broad term. Like anything is a molecule. Water is a molecule. Amino acids are molecules, proteins are molecules, peptides are molecules. So think about molecules as sort of this umbrella term, whereas peptide fits underneath that as a small chain of amino acids. So that's really kind of the difference. I know there are some people out there who talk about them as molecules, and that's incorrect, or that is correct. It is a molecule, but I think as I view it, I think of it a little bit more specifically as a peptide. And that's really how we've been talking about it since I've been here at For Life, because like I said, the research that we do on transfer factor, it's really research that's being done on peptides.
Dr. Vollmer, one other thing I think is really important for everyone to understand on dosage. Let's talk about dosing real quick, because we've learned that the sweet spot really is 600 milligrams of transfer factor taken daily. But you can get your 600 milligrams. I don't want people to think we just have a transfer factor product. A lot of our products contain transfer factor. Like one of my favorites is Renuvo. I love Renuvo. It's just such a great recovery product, and it's got the adaptogens and so forth. So our products, you can get multiple benefits by taking different, even targeted transfer factors, Renuvo, Age Pro. So you're getting multiple benefits. If you don't mind, just share with everyone real quick, the importance of your 600 milligrams, but you can get that many ways.
Yeah, it's a great question, Dave, because this was another thing that came about because of the research that we were doing. And the research that we were doing was, we knew for many, many years, whether it was clinical or in vitro or preclinical, whatever type of work we were doing, we knew transfer factor had a positive effect on the immune system. That there was no doubt about that. But the question that came about is, okay, well, but how fast, how quickly does transfer factor have a positive impact on the immune system? And we didn't know that answer until we did a clinical study a number of years ago, looking at the impact on the immune system after a single dose of transfer factor. And because at that time, trifactor was sort of our core formula, 600 milligrams, we decided to do the study on 600 milligrams of transfer factor. And in that study, we found that the immune system was positively impacted in just 2 hours. And so that really sort of served as the research that helped us support what we call the daily dose. So you may have heard this daily dose of transfer factor. And that was based on doing this 2-hour study on 600 milligrams of transfer factor. But one thing that we did beyond 2 hours is we also looked, well, in these same people, what happens after 24 hours of one dose of transfer factor? And what we found is that the positive effects started to diminish after 24 hours. They weren't the same as they were at 2 hours. And so that really served as the research that helps support this daily dose. So if you want to keep your immune system active and thriving and activated, you really have to take it every day, 600 milligrams. Now, is the 600 milligrams that we take, you can get that in a number of products, in just one product. You can get that in trifactor formula. You can get it in ProTF. You can get it in Rio Vita. You can take 2 servings of TF Plus. You can take 1 serving of Transfer Factor Max. There's a number of products where you can take them singly to get that daily dose of transfer factor, that 600 milligrams. Or, as Dave was mentioning, we have trifactor in various amounts, various dosages in targeted products, including Renuvo, where if you take a combination of these products, as long as it adds up to be 600 milligrams, you're going to get that activated immune system on a daily basis. And so it doesn't have to be just one product. It can be a number of different products that allows you to get your 600 milligrams. And so today, for me, I took 2 servings of Age Pro. I took Right Start. So 2 servings of Age Pro, that gives me 200 milligrams. I took Right Start, that gives me 300 milligrams from the plus. I'm at 500 milligrams. And then I took Glucoach, which is another 100 milligrams of trifactor to get me my 600 milligrams. So when I go about my day, depending on whatever products I'm taking, I'm always cognizant of taking enough transfer factor products, whether they're targeted or whatnot to make sure I get my daily dose.
Yeah,
That
and the
daily
great
dose
thing
keeps your,
is, well, like me, I'm a big fan of Energy Go Sticks.
yeah.
So by the time I've had my Energy Go Sticks, my Right Start, my Renuvo, my Rio Vita throughout the day, I'm probably getting 1,000 milligrams or so of transfer factors.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And if you take Immune Boost, you're right off the
Yeah.
bat, you're getting 1,000 milligrams.
Exactly.
Right. And now I think somebody showed the Energy Go shot that has just been launched that also has transfer factor in it. So if you are a little bit on the pill fatigue side of things, you now have another way to get some energy as well as to get your transfer factor.
Yeah, Go shots are great. I keep them in the refrigerator. I had mine this morning.
Yeah.
Just like a little shot. Open it up and just drink it. And it's blood orange. It tastes really good.
Yeah. It's a really good product. I'm glad we brought that back.
Yep. So Dave, there are some questions in the chat. I don't know if
Okay.
we have time to go over some of them, or do you want to ask them?
Yeah, let's have a look. We got a few minutes here.
Okay. So I can go through and ask. There's a couple
Yeah,
here.
if you've got some, throw them out to Dr.
Okay,
Vollmer.
I will. Now, this one may be sensitive, Dr. Vollmer. I know for compliance, there's certain things that we can or cannot say, right? This is actually from Jennifer Larson. Are there any studies that show the effects of transfer factor or colostrum in general in people with certain infections like COVID, influenza, autoimmune conditions, or cancer?
Yeah.
I know it's sensitive.
Yeah, no, I actually like answering this question because it helps, it kind of gives some, it's easy for me to say, no, we can't talk about it, right? And then just be done with it, right? But why can't we talk about it? Why can't we talk about transfer factor and disease? There are a number of studies out there that do this. They are not sponsored by us, but they are out there and you can find them in the literature. Why can we not talk about it? Because when we do our studies, because of the regulations in our industry, we can only do these studies on healthy subjects. And so when we do these studies on healthy subjects, that means these people don't have infections, they don't have cancer, they don't have all these different ailments that people like to talk about. And that really speaks to, the credibility of For Life as a company. If we don't study a particular population of people, let's say people who have cancer or whatever, then it would be irresponsible for us to say that our products work with people who have cancer. Now, I'm not going to say they do or they don't. All I'm going to say is that we don't study that population. And so if we don't study that population, then it would be irresponsible for us to really say that it's going to have a positive effect because we didn't do the study. What we talk about are studies that we do because we do a lot of studies. We're a research company and we can talk about the studies that we do. We can't talk about the studies that other people do.
Thank you for that. I do have another question. Just trying to fire them off quickly. Is taking Super Greens plus transfer factor plus the equivalent to taking Max? This is from Sonia.
In some respects, it is in the sense from what you would get with the amount of transfer factors. So if you were to take 2 servings of plus and 1 serving of Super Greens, you would get the same amount of transfer factor that you would in Max. But the function of these products are very, very different. So Max and Plus is similar in terms of these are immune system products. Super Greens is really a product for people who are not getting their vegetables.
Okay.
And it's also giving you the immune benefits of phytofactor because there's phytofactor in that as well. But the purpose of Super Greens is really for those people who are on the go, not always eating well, not getting their fruits and vegetables. And we know that 90% of the people in America are not eating their fruits and vegetables. And so this product was really designed for those, but also still leveraging the benefits of the immune peptides from phytofactor.
One of my favorite products was Bountiful Harvest. I love it. In fact, I still have a lot of bottles. I saved them. But it's one of my favorite products. I was super excited about Super Greens.
Yeah, Super Greens is really the next advancement in that story. Bountiful Harvest was a great fruits and vegetables product, but you had to take a lot of capsules. Yeah, I think you had to take like 6 capsules.
Right.
And Super Greens is a powder. It's really popular right now. If people are paying attention to greens. There's a lot of interest in that, not just from, the older folks, but actually the younger folks. There's a lot of younger demographics that are really interested in taking super greens because they don't always necessarily get their fruits and vegetables, and it's a very on-the-go type of product. So we're hoping that this is a product that's going to sort of translate into a younger demographic and be able to bring younger people into For Life, which is a demographic that we are working towards.
And another product that I keep planting in your ear, starting from Thailand. Hopefully that'll come to fruition.
We're actually going to be talking about that this week, Dave. So it is making some rounds. I don't know what's going to happen with it, but we're always working on products. Not every product makes it to the finish line. Super Greens we've been working on for probably 8 or 9 years. And really what got it to the finish line was finding phytofactor. And now we have this completely vegan product. And so there's a lot of interest in vegan type products, plant-based diets. And so sometimes we're working on these things and then they kind of get parked for a little bit, and then something comes up and it says, oh, this is something, that we can leverage the research that we did a number of years ago and create a great product. And so that's really how Super Greens came.
You made a comment earlier, and I do have one last question for you before we close out. And Jillian, if you have any questions as well.
There's a couple in the chat here. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's do that real quick. Let's jump to this question from Brent. Is that the one that you were going to ask, Jillian?
Yes,
okay,
correct.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Jillian.
So from Brent, did you say that transfer factor max can actually increase stem cell production? And don't our bodies or bone marrow have only a certain amount of stem cells? And doesn't the amount of stem cells decrease in our bone marrow over our lifetimes? I know this is a loaded question, but yeah.
Yeah, so it is correct. I did say that transfer factor max can naturally produce millions of stem cells. We do have the capability, our body does, of doing that. But if you don't, because this study, let's just talk about that study for a second. This was a study where we had a number of people who took max and then they took placebo, or vice versa, took placebo, then they took max. And we monitored these markers on these stem cells to actually be able to count how many stem cells were being produced. And when you compare the number of stem cells in the placebo group and the number of stem cells in the transfer factor max group, what we saw a huge increase in a matter of a few hours, a huge increase in the number of stem cells that was produced by transfer factor max compared to the number of stem cells that was produced by placebo. These are coming from the same people, right? One dose, they took placebo, one dose, they took transfer factor max. And when you extrapolate the number of stem cells coming into the blood and compare placebo to TF max, what you find is that we're talking about millions of stem cells with transfer factor max compared to millions more, I should say. So we're still producing stem cells when we have placebo, but when we take transfer factor max, we're actually producing more, naturally producing more, millions of more stem cells compared to placebo.
Wow, that's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and just quick questions. I have Marissa asking about a product called Inner Sun. Will that be coming back?
Yeah, that's a great question. And like Super Greens and Bountiful Harvest, we're actually working on a product that would be a better version of Inner Sun. And so Inner Sun was sort of a mood product that we had, a really good product. Unfortunately, the sales weren't as well as could warrant continuation. But there's definitely a need there, and we are actually working on a product now that is leveraging quite a bit more recent research around some ingredients that have a good impact on mood.
And I heard also about Feel Rite. A lot of people are asking for that as well.
Yeah, Feel Rite was a great product. I get that question a lot, and sadly, as of today, it is not coming back, and I'm not sure
it's
if
China's fault.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if everybody knows that, Dave, but the reason why Feel Rite was discontinued is because one of the ingredients, which only comes from China, that's the only place you can get it, it was testing positive for pesticides. And no matter what region of China we went to, because there's essentially a Sichuan region in China where this is made. No matter what region we went to, what farm we went to, we were always finding pesticides.
Okay.
And one of the things that speaks to the quality at For Life is if there's anything wrong with a raw material, and it doesn't pass all of the tests, then we're not going to create a product that has failed tests. And so while it's sad that we can't have that product in the marketplace, it does really speak to the importance of quality, the importance of integrity, because there's probably a lot of companies out there that wouldn't care about that and would probably go ahead and sell that. In fact, oftentimes when we ask if we have a failed material, and when we order materials in, we're talking about thousands of kilos of material, right? So we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars of material. And if we test it and it fails, then we have two options. We can discard it and eat that cost, or we can send it back to the vendor, or we can ask the vendor, hey, we're not going to pay for this, and we're going to discard it because it's contaminated. And most of the time, the vendor wants us to ship it back to them. Why do they want us to ship it back to them? Because they know they can sell it to somebody else. And that's just the reality of our industry. And it's one of the things that I think, when I think about quality and integrity and For Life, is we're not going to put something out there. We're not going to create a product that has failed our testing. And our testing is pretty stringent. And so when you think about a product like Transfer Factor Plus, you're talking about 700 plus tests in every bottle, including all the raw material testing, the finished product testing, the stability testing. There's a lot of testing that goes on. And if any one of those tests fail, then we don't release the product. And Feel Rite is our recent example of that.
And I know
You
they have one
guys-
other, go ahead, Dave.
No, go ahead, Jillian. Go with the question.
No, the question was just about, Lori was asking about, do we have access to the studies? Yeah, those are on the website, but there's also third-party testing happening with For Life. So you just kind of elaborated on that with the Feel Rite. So I appreciate that. But you can go to the website for the studies and publications.
Yeah, let me just put that link in there. It's something that I'm super proud of because we do spend a lot of time and effort. So I will put that link in there. The studies that we have for phytofactor are already up there. The studies for Max are in manuscript preparation mode. And so we hope to have those published by the end of the year. That's another thing that really distinguishes For Life is that when we do our research, it's important for us to publish it. And what does publishing mean? It means that you write a manuscript and you submit it to a scientific journal, and then the editor of that journal then sends it out to reviewers. And these are people who don't know anything about For Life. All they're doing is looking at the science that's presented to them, looking at the manuscript. What was the experiment? What were the results? What were the methodologies used? What conclusions did you draw? And then they decide whether this is worthy of publication. It's a pretty high bar for most of the scientific journals that we publish in. And so if it's published, then it's essentially validating the science that we have done. And so we have a website where, and I'll put that in the chat, we have a website that shows you all of the different publications that we've done for the various products. Not all the products, but most of the products.
And doesn't include third-party documentation, right?
It does, yeah, because
Okay.
a lot of our research, in fact, most of our research is done by third parties.
Okay, thank you for the clarification on that. So, okay.
Thank you, Jillian. I appreciate that. And Dr. Vollmer, thank you for your time as well. And I appreciate your friendship and all of the work that you do. And I just want everybody to know, that I want to bring this back to network marketing. All right. Because we talk network marketing, a lot of people are familiar with it these days, and they think of a lot of different companies out there. For Life is so different. I don't consider them really an MLM company. They're a research company. And David Lisenby is very familiar with this model, this business model of networking, because he's been around it since the 70s. Some of you might be familiar with Nature Sunshine products. Well, David's mom, Louise Tenney, wrote all the books on herbs and so forth, and still they're published today all around the world. And so he's been around this model and seen the power of communication and personal testimony, personal stories that people share. Well, For Life is different because it's a research company. And think about this. This is our company, you guys. They get their ideas from us. So just like Dr. Vollmer mentioned, somebody brought up vegan transfer factor, which kind of caught, and this goes way back 5-7 years ago. They started researching a bit about peptides in plants, and botanicals, sorry. And so to me, it's very exciting. What does it all mean? You guys, we have got a tremendous future here with For Life. They're going to continue to innovate, to develop, and For Life doesn't just go buy a product and give it to us to sell. That's what most companies do. For Life creates, they innovate, they manufacture. In fact, Dr. Vollmer, I think it'd be safe to say For Life manufactures over 90% of their products in their own manufacturing plant. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yep.
So we're different. For Life's got total control. And so I'm just looking so forward to the future. And you guys, we've just got to get out there and share with everybody, because For Life's a global company, multinational. You can build your business all around the world, but you got to talk about it. That's what this is about. So thank you, everyone, for coming today. So thank you, everyone, for joining. Jillian, thank you. And Dr. Vollmer, thank you again for your time. I look forward to seeing you again at some point here in the very near future. Everyone, let's keep going. Let's keep growing. Keep sharing. We love you guys.